All right, we are live. And my first thing is yikes. Not that I'm live, but the topic that we're going to talk about today. So, if you've been on YouTube or if you've heard this around the internet, there are more and more people who are stopping and just quitting YouTube altogether. And I noticed this like late last year after I heard that Vanessa Lau last year had just said, you know what, I'm getting off the internet. I'm canceling all my, not canceling, but she stopped posting to all of her social media platforms and she basically shut down her business. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I heard that Emma Chamberlain had also done the same thing where she just completely stepped away. When you look at their YouTube channels, they've got like 12 million, over 700,000 subscribers. And you've got to wonder, like, what got them to that point where they were like, I have to step away. And hey, it's good to see you, Consult a Blind Guy, Andrew. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. So then I started seeing more and more people posting about it, saying that they were quitting YouTube. And then there was even somebody who's on YouTube who I also followed on Instagram. She had posted on YouTube that she was quitting Instagram. And I'm like, what is going on? And so when I started to do a little bit of research, I started seeing a consistent theme. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because, interestingly enough, earlier this month, I launched a Get Started with YouTube masterclass, which I've now turned into a 3D challenge or a 3-day challenge. And I was like, oh my gosh. So if I'm here talking about starting YouTube and there's all these videos out there about how YouTubers are quitting, I felt the need to address the elephant in the room. So that was the reason why I wanted to do this video. Obviously, this is not the typical video that I would create on YouTube or anywhere, but I felt compelled. I was called. I felt like the right thing to do at this moment is to talk about it. So I did some digging around and kind of listened to videos and why these different mega YouTubers essentially are quitting YouTube. And the one consistent theme is that they are just burnout. So we're talking YouTubers who have anywhere between, I saw like the lowest amount was like 700,000 subscribers. They've been doing it for like, 6 years, all the way up to somebody who had 12 million subscribers and have been doing it for like 12 or 15 years. So when you think about that, that is a long time to be creating content consistently, especially if their intention when they first started was to do it for fun, or they were doing it as a hobby. And they may not have had the vision back then to grow into this massive account or massive business, which is essentially what it is when you're creating a YouTube channel and that's all you're doing, right? That's not what I teach people to do. I teach people to create videos. YouTube is one of the platforms they should incorporate into their overall marketing. But I'm not teaching people to be YouTubers. Like that's all they do. But when you look at the trend of what people are doing and how they get to that point, it's kind of, if you have a competitive spirit like I do, you get to a point where you're just like, okay, I've done that. Now I've got to do this. I need to make it better. I need to, I need to up it up. And I see somebody else doing something. Now I need to try and do what they're doing. And you're always trying to get better, which is good, right? You always want to get like 1% better with the next video or the next thing that you're doing so that you're evolving, you're growing, and you're getting better. But when you get to the point where if you started out and it was for fun or it was a hobby or it was something that you were doing, like a lot of them were just doing like vlogging type videos, and you're doing your day-to-day and you're having fun, and then you decide to hire a team member and then it just kind of escalates from there, you very quickly or over time get away from your initial intention or your initial purpose, and you might lose sight of that. And then when it comes to the realization that, this isn't really the reason why I was on YouTube, then you start doing some self-assessment. And the triggers that got some of them there were, one, burnout. They're just like, oh my gosh, how much more of this can I do? Another thing is that they weren't getting paid as much by YouTube. So they're putting all this time and effort into it. They've got a team of people now that they have to support. And, so their bottom line is shrinking because they're not making as much money on YouTube, but yet they're still paying out everything that they were supposed to or that they needed to. So when you feel like you're putting in all this time and effort into any one initiative and it feels good or the right thing to do at one point, over time, as long as you're doing those self-assessments, it may not be the right thing for you to do, right? And of course, if you're not getting the same thing out of it as you were, initially or over time, there's going to be a drop in what you do, whether it's the number of times that you're posting, the length of your videos, the how frequent you're posting them. Maybe you're doing them like twice a week and you're like, you know what, now I'm going to back it off and do it like once every 2 weeks. There needs to be some give and take, but I think it really boils down to one, the self-awareness and self-assessment, which I applaud people when they're able to do. And it's not just on YouTube. It's across different platforms as well. So I applaud people who can take that step back and just kind of do that self-assessment, because it's healthier for our mental health in moving forward if we're running our own business or if you're running your channel as a business itself, and especially if you have other team members that are involved in that overall, like revenue, the sales, and what you're bringing in income-wise that you need to pay out to your team members. So the self-assessment, but then also the realization of what you're doing today. And if it's really still resonating with you, do you still have that passion to continue moving forward with what you're actually creating on YouTube? Or if you're just like dreading it every single time you have to pick up your camera, or you have to come up with an idea, or you have to actually do the filming of it. And I think, and if you're here and can attest to this, or if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments, is that it seems like, and I've even talked about this before too, and I'm like, I'm going to stop talking about this, is that if you look at people who are doing these highly overproduced videos, almost like commercial quality videos that, you pay tens of thousands of dollars for, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars for. And I'm always mentioning Mr. Beast type videos, where if you look at his videos, it's like every 2 to 3 seconds, he's changing something, whether it's a slight zoom in or he's changing the focus completely. And that's what keeps people's attention on his videos. Of course, the topics and $1 million giveaways and challenges and all that stuff is part of it too. But if you look at the editing and the planning and all of that, it's really intriguing and it's impressive that he can go through and do all of that. Of course, he's got a team of people that he pays a ton of money to in order to make that happen. But there are also other YouTubers who are talking about in 2024, backing it up, simplifying the process and doing not necessarily live streams, but doing more talking head videos that don't have as much editing. And I think the reason being, I don't know if what triggered that was, I haven't heard anybody put those two pieces together, like simplifying was triggered by people quitting YouTube. Like, I don't know if there's a connection between those two, but now as I'm saying it and talking it out loud, it makes sense, right? So if you want to get away from the, I've got to overly produce it and I've got to, create this, massively edited and super creative and fun video, it's not necessary. It's just not, even if you're just getting started on YouTube and you're like, I want to be the next Mr. Beast. Like, that's not something that you need to get to. And I'll talk about my tips here in a second as well, because I think it's important to go through and talk about these tips. I can't stop now. I officially started my business. This is Consult a Blind Guy here. I'll pull these up. I can't stop now. If I can find my mouse. There it is. Can't stop now. I officially started my business, made $300 in 6 months. Nice. Awesome. Congratulations. You're guilty. It's probably of doing too much. That's what I like. Batch content makes things a little bit easier instead of being overwhelmed. Yes, absolutely. Passion to profit. Yes, exactly. I actually asked this on LinkedIn this morning when I posted about, I was doing this live stream, and it's just like, hey, have you ever gotten burnt out, or if you ever stopped posting on any particular platform because it was just, for whatever reason? And this was on LinkedIn. So somebody had said, it was Brenda Miller of Miller Marketing. She's on YouTube. Need to check her out. She trains about LinkedIn and she's phenomenal. But one of the comments was about Facebook. So she had mentioned that, she stopped posting on Facebook as frequently, and she had her own reasons for doing that. But again, it goes back to that self-assessment and realizing that if it's not something I'm truly passionate about, and I feel like I'm posting just to be posting, then something needs to change. And that's something that I changed recently too on LinkedIn, is because for the last 2 to 3 years, I was, following the rules, posting like I was supposed to be posting and commenting. And I always tell people I was playing the game. I was doing the commenting before you posted, you respond to comments, like doing all the things. And it was exhausting. And I wasn't seeing the benefits from my effort. So it was my self-assessment and decision to not spend as much time there, because it wasn't healthy for me. It was frustrating. And if you get to that point where, whether it's on YouTube or any other platform, and you're like, you know what, I'm just not enjoying this anymore. Like, it's not fun to be here. To force yourself to continue doing those sorts of things is unhealthy. And we don't live in the hustle mentality anymore. That's like out the window. There are more and more people, myself included, looking for ways to work smarter, not harder. So we all want to work smarter, make more money, not work harder and make less money. So it's that second bucket that a lot of these YouTubers were falling into. They felt like they were just working harder and harder and trying to get better and better, and they were making less and less money. So at some point, it has to give, right? So one of the things that I wanted to do was just share some tips that I have, as I was like listening to videos and I was thinking through this process, and I was thinking about my 3-day challenge about getting started with video, which I think there's a link in the description. I think I added that if you guys want to check that out. If anybody's watching this and hasn't gotten started, or if you want to revive your channel, then I encourage you to take a look at that. But as I was preparing for this, I was just like, I think it's important that as you start or even continue posting on YouTube, I wanted to share some tips. Let me pull this up real quick. Yes, work smarter, not harder, implement systems, make things a bit easier and less time consuming. Yeah. And one of the comments too of one of the YouTubers was that not only were they just burnt out, but they were kind of looking into the future as to what they're seeing with AI. And his vision, I don't know if he was joking around or just being facetious or whatever, but he was just like, I see the future of being like more of these, pointless, faceless, generative AI channels, which, it's completely different type of video than what he was creating. And you just kind of have to think through that too and be like, do you want to be a part of that? I mean, yeah, it's cool. But if YouTube's going to go down that path and start encouraging and rewarding channels that are focusing on that type of content, there has to be, a good balance, right? So just like in life, we need a work-life balance. And a lot of these creators weren't getting that. So it's just time to reevaluate and, take a step back. So some of the tips that I wanted to share with you guys is, the first one is to set boundaries. And this is all to avoid the burnout. It's to avoid getting to that point where you're just like, you know what, I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. And these tips can apply to any platform. I'm just sharing them here because the topic's about YouTubers who are quitting. But setting boundaries, how much time a day, how many days do you want to be focused on that particular platform, and just really stick to it. Creating those boundaries gives you peace of mind. And it also allows you to say no, either to yourself, if you're like, no, I want to spend 10 more minutes on YouTube. No, I want to, try and edit this video just a little bit more. It'll help you keep yourself, in check, as well as you start to move forward with your video journey, regardless of where you're at. So setting boundaries is going to be really important. The second tip I have is to set a goal. So when you start YouTube, not only do you have a purpose, right? That's one of the first things I have people do when they go through my Get Started with YouTube challenge, or the last time in the masterclass, was to think about why. Why are you starting this channel? But once you have that identified, you also need to know, like, what am I going towards? Do you want it to be 1 million subscribers? Do you want to get to that 100,000 mark so you can get the silver play button platter or plaque? Is it another channel where you can reach a brand new audience, where you can start selling products, and create a new revenue stream? Do you want to share affiliate? So you need to understand like what your goal is on the platform and then stick to it. That's going to help with the mental health as well. Tip number 3 is the type of videos. So if you think about it, the vlogs, like where you're, It could be daily, where you're creating maybe one video a week, but every day you're probably filming something, right? Where you're filming an event or an activity or something of interest that's going on in your life or around you. And those types of videos probably get a little, and this is just me because I'm not a vlogger, but those might become a little bit more challenging to do on a longer term. You might have to get more creative. You might need to hire a team because you're spending all this time trying to figure out, what are you going to film in your life? What does that look like? All the different shots versus tutorials where you might be doing, more how-to type videos. You can either be on camera, off camera, mix of those two. You don't need as much editing. You don't have to move locations. There's not as much involved. You really have to look at your target audience. What do they want? They might want a combination of those two. They might want to get to know you and see what goes on in your life. And if that's something that you want to share, then you just figure out, what your YouTube strategy is, your video strategy is, and see how you can incorporate those two things together. But just knowing the type of videos, that's going to help you understand too, what you're actually getting yourself into, how much time you might need to have, planned into creating each one of your videos. And that's going to help you plan out your week too, so that you can see what else you're going to have time for, especially when you're looking at those boundaries. If you've got family, if you've got friends, you've got activities, you've got other things in your life you're doing, you can't be a 24/7, video creator. You can't be a 24/7 YouTuber. It's exhausting. And that's one of the things that they were all saying in there too, is that they're just spending way too much time. I think it was Pat, the game theorist. I think he was the one who said that he was spending, so all day long, every single day, 7 days a week, he was focused on his videos. He was either thinking of video content ideas or, he was working with his team, he was producing them, whatever it was. Then he found himself, because his wife was involved in the business, I think the last few years. And then he realized that whenever they sat down to dinner, that's all they talked about. Their life literally revolved around YouTube videos. And you have to get to a point where is this what I want my life to be? I personally do not. And it's not one of the things that I talk about in any of my training. But it's something that you as an individual might need to just make that decision. If that's what you want to do, then that's great. Just know that, have a plan too, which I think I talk about in here, is just to kind of think ahead, what you want to do. My tip number 4 is to repurpose from other platforms. So I used to create videos for either Instagram or TikTok when I was doing the short form videos only. And then I would repurpose those onto YouTube. So you're creating one video and I was uploading to 3 different platforms. But then I realized that, where I really wanted to focus, it was a self-assessment. I had to take a step back and where do I find my time and energy best spent? What do I enjoy the most? And that's where I decided I wanted to focus on YouTube. But if you can take one video, you can take a YouTube video. You can link it to your blog on your website, which is going to help with SEO. You could take this video and put it on Facebook or LinkedIn. There's different ways that you can use those videos. So I encourage you to look beyond just the one platform and see how you can leverage all that time and effort, maybe money that you put into that video, and you can put it on other platforms. You'll feel better about it as well. My tip number 5 is, what's your limit? What are you willing to do? And then where do you draw the line with what you're trying to create? So an example is if you are just getting started with YouTube and you're hey, I'm doing everything myself. I'm doing the planning, recording, editing, publishing, all the goods, the entire production of your video. But then you're you might get to the point where you're you know what, I think I want to hire somebody. That's when you need to start thinking at what point do I want to stop? Do you just want to hire an editor and then that's all you're going to do? It could be that you don't want to sell products at all. You just want to train people on how to use different tools, resources, technology, et cetera, whatever it is. So just know what you're willing not to do. And then that's going to help with the boundaries as well that you're setting. Tip number 6 is your mental health checks. This is the most important thing. I had mentioned this when I was on LinkedIn. It was actually doing the opposite of what it probably should have been doing. It should be energizing, but it was just it felt like it was sucking the energy out of me. And it wasn't a healthy place for me to be spending my time anymore. The same thing is true on YouTube. If you find yourself getting so involved and you're just like, God, dreading creating this video, or you're like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Doing those mental health checks is a great idea. And you might need to take a step back for a week or a couple of weeks and not focus so much on your production schedule or like your upload schedule. That was one of the reasons that I'm trying to think of who it was. One of the gentlemen had mentioned that he was so focused on the production schedule, like every Monday at 4 p.m. was like, he was religious about it. And that can get to you after a while. And that's one of the things that I talk about is like, uploading consistently. So I will kind of, figure out that verbiage so that no one gets into that, mode of I've got to upload. But it really all comes down to your mental health, because that's more important than uploading a video to YouTube, right? So you've got to be in the best, place in your mind and in your health in order to continue moving forward. So just knowing that if you're like, I just don't want to do this, your body and your mind is telling you something, and to really listen to it and pay attention to it, because that's more important than pressing that upload button. Taking breaks is a good thing. And then my last tip is to create an exit strategy. If you're serious about YouTube and that's the only platform, it's one that you're just like, I'm going to dive all in on YouTube, or maybe you want to become one of those YouTubers where YouTube is your business. Whether you're a content creator or you're in actual business, if that's something that you're looking at doing, I think it's important and really, it's a smart thing to do, is that at some point you're going to want to stop, right? Maybe you're going to retire and you don't want to work anymore. What is your exit strategy? Are you just going to stop producing videos, or are you going to give some notice, maybe have a couple of final videos? Planning that out, I think, is important. Even if you're just like, I'm going to do this for 10 years and you know what that 10-year mark is, and you've got your last couple of videos planned. If you decide to stop in year 8, you've still got your last few videos planned that you can just step in and just, retire early, whatever it might look like for you. So those are my 7 tips. Again, that's not just for YouTube. That goes across all, platforms, but I think it's important to pay attention to those. Okay, let's see here. Tip 2, I got to put on my glasses. I've got my small screen today. Tip 2 also helps keep you in your lane. Yes. Establish your area of interest or area of mastery. Yes. Unconfined air. I agree. And then Unconfined Air also said, if you are producing inconsistent content and acting like you know everything about everything, people start to doubt your depth. It starts to appear more shallow, like you are just attention seeking. Yes, absolutely. That's why I wanted to clarify why I was on here today. I'm like, wait, they're doing the opposite of what I'm starting to train. Let's see here. Consult the blind guy. Energy vampire. Yes, I've experienced that. Not just on LinkedIn, but on other platforms. Unconfined air. Also important to take a pulse on those around you. Are they making comments about you withdrawing from social commitments in favor of content production? Yeah, I think that's important too. Like, who are you surrounding yourself with online, and in person? And if you find that there are people around you that are energy suckers or not supportive in one way or another, then it's time to figure out how you can keep them at an arm's distance. I know that's not always possible to get them completely out of your life, but if there's a way to keep them at an arm's distance, or if they're just online and somebody that you need to block, then block them. It's free. Again, it's all about you and your mental health, right? You can't produce your best content. You can't show up in your best way if you've got those people around you that are actually hurting your productivity or hurting your mental health. Those are people that you don't need as part of that process. Maybe you have to have them in your life, but maybe they don't need to be a part of what you're doing online. Consult a blind guy. Yeah, when things start sucking the energy and fun out of it, definitely time to evaluate things. I agree. It's not worth it to always have to feel that way. If you're not feeling good about something, then it's okay to step away. So that is what I am sharing today. If you do want to check out my 3-day getting started with YouTube challenge, the link, I believe, like I mentioned, is in the description. If not, I'll add it once this video is done processing, I think is what it's been a while since I've done a live stream. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. If you're watching the replay, let me know if you have questions as well. I'd love to hear from you. These comments that you guys were sharing today were awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of the live stream. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, it's just important for us all to, just take that check and make sure that we're spending our time and efforts in the right place at the right time. And if you see movement behind me, one of my cats just got a bunch of energy. She does this when I get on camera. It never fails. Oh, there you go. Thank you for putting that up there. Yeah, VickiO'Neill.com/YT for YouTube. That will take you to the page for the 3-day challenge. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I can put it up on screen. All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for participating and, sharing your comments and thoughts and questions and everything. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys at another time. Make today great.